Hi, I'm Peter Rossi. I'm making this video from the Detroit airport. Obviously, the weather rather, has conspired from my attending the event today, and I'm very sorry I can't attend. There's no place I'd rather be than with you today. So to President Seligman, distinguished guests, and new Dean Andrew Ainslie, it's very much an honor for me to speak here today. My goal will be to tell you a little bit about Andrew's approach to his academic career and life in general. I will then outline what I believe are some challenges we really face, severe challenges we face in business education today, and in particular at Simon. I will conclude by arguing that Andrew will make a great dean by extrapolation from what I know of Andrew as a colleague and as an administrator at Anderson. First, let me talk about Andrew, the student and scholar. Andrew showed up at the PhD program at Chicago as a rather unusual student from Rhodesia or Zimbabwe via South Africa and nearly 30 years old. As many of you know, we essentially discriminate against older students who apply to PhD programs because we think that research is a young person's game. Andrew's kind of proved us all wrong on that. He did just excellently in the program, but he also brought some level of maturity and social skills that are, shall we say, sorely lacking in many academic circles. Andrew's thesis research turned into a classic paper on how preference parameters are correlated across product categories. The marketing literature at this point, when he started the program around 96 or so, had spent about 15 years using panel data to document what we call unobserved heterogeneity in preference parameters. For example, we observe many consumers who exhibit extreme price sensitivity, buying only on deal essentially, and others who appear to show almost no price sensitivity. Heterogeneity is the one constant law of marketing. But there are some who take the view that our estimates of heterogeneity are specious and simply a consequence of sampling error or omitted observables of some kind. Andrew set out, I think, in large measure to prove this point of view wrong. Andrew's idea was that heterogeneity should be, to some extent, a consumer-specific trait. That is, must be a large component in response to price, which is consumer specific, not specific to any one particular type of product. It is hard to imagine, for example, that the distribution of preference parameters is block diagonal, where the blocks correspond to different product categories. The challenge was to implement this idea in a practical approach. At that point, econometricians were having a lot of time making even just one parameter random, and actually some of them still are. Right? But Andrew came up with a very clever variance component scheme, which is embedded in a practical Bayesian solution. In typical fashion, Andrew wrote the paper and moved on to other topics of interest to him. It was up to others in our field to essentially take his methodology and his approach and apply it to documenting commonalities in state dependence or private label demand. Andrew wasn't interested in squeezing the last juice from this idea. I think he just got bored of it, and that's something I have a great deal of sympathy for. Andrew, the colleague and administrator. When I joined in Anderson in 2009, I was able to observe Andrew as a colleague. He's a superb colleague. His remarks at seminars are often the most insightful and certainly among the most open-minded. He stood up for junior faculty and tried to protect them from some of what I would call the necessary hypocrisy of business schools. Andrew seeks a challenge, and I think the research track lost some of its appeal and challenge to him. Sort of been there, done that. Andrew saw some very significant challenges for our MBA program. We had slipping ratings and a dysfunctional admissions and placements departments. In addition, the students were a bit alienated from both the faculty and the school. Dean Judy Olean, to her great credit, gave Andrew a chance by appointing him Associate Dean for the MBA program. This was a very gutsy move because, as many of us who know Andrew know, that he was a bit of a wild man at that point in time. Andrew relished the challenges of hiring new staff and boosting the morale of both students and our staff. He proved to be a very good leader, nudging and persuading rather than bullying and blustering. Throughout this process, Andrew never lost his respect for the faculty and showed a great deal of patience in dealing with some very prickly people. Andrew's general approach to life. Andrew loves a challenge and seeks them out in all aspects of life. He's probably one of the longest list of life-threatening hobbies that I know, whether it's technical deep diving, cave diving, power and glider piloting, racing motorcycles, and cars. His energy is legendary. Andrew will invite the MBA Wine Club over to his house, which was basically a wine rack with 4 walls, drink them under the table, and then get up the next morning at 5:30 a.m. to race his Ducati along Mulholland Drive, followed by an afternoon of deep diving off of Catalina Island. What do I see as some of the major challenges for business education and Simon? After 30 years in our business and innumerable dean search committees, executive committees, and watching now it's 6 deans at work, I do think I have a pretty clear idea of how difficult the dean's job is. There are many constituencies, scarce resources, and very little direct power to affect change. It takes a very special person to do this well. On top of all this, we face some serious challenges in business education. In the race to the bottom to improve ratings of MBA programs, many schools have essentially gutted their programs of content that is either relevant to the marketplace or fun to teach. Our millennial students have become slightly entitled, having been told their entire life that they were brilliant and outstanding, and so many of them have begun to even believe this. At the same time, and this concerns me greatly, there's a lot of faculty complaining about teaching. Teaching, we should all understand, is our profession. It is as if the priests complained about giving sermons and just wanted to stick to doing confessionals. Part of this problem is that business school faculty have gotten a bit spoiled, I think, by some years of coddling. But another and equally important part of the problem is that the curriculum has gotten watered down so that it's no fun to teach. These are particularly acute problems for places like Simon. Students come to Simon to learn and to create value added in the marketplace, not really to network. Coupled with these disaffections is a general view that there is a trade-off between research and teaching. This is complete nonsense. The best researchers have a great deal to offer students and are often inspired teachers. They are excited about their teaching and their work, and that infuses their every effort. This view will be the death of serious business education unless we all work to exterminate it. So the challenge for business school deans in general, and Andrew in particular, is to infuse our programs with greater relevance and rigor and to keep the value added of our education high. Why do I think that Andrew will make a great dean? First and foremost, Andrew is an academic with a great deal of intellectual curiosity and respect for research. He will work tirelessly to improve the quality of Simon's faculty, particularly at the younger ranks, which is, after all, the future of the school. Secondly, Andrew sees Simon as a challenge, and this will keep him focused and excited. He will rationalize Simon's smorgasbord of programs and create a quality faculty and set of students who are excited to be here. He will pour his prodigious energy into engaging alums and raising money. Third, Andrew will improve the staff. Few realize that you can't have a top-shelf business school without a top-shelf staff. Your only worry should be that after 5 years or so, Andrew will get a little bored and will stand a chance of attracting them back to UCLA. I'd like to conclude with a little more personal message, or perhaps a little bit of advice or warning to Andrew. And I've observed that, one major concern about becoming a dean is that it can have a huge impact on the aging process. The endless meetings, complaints from everyone, the barrage of email, the griping, clearly all combine to wither away at the spirit. As an example, let me show you a picture of a dean at a major business school at the time of his appointment. So can we see that first slide, please? Not great, but clearly still alive. Now, let's take this look at that same dean after 7 years of deanship. Can we see the second slide? Extra points if you can guess who that is. So in order to establish a baseline for Andrew, I'd like to show you a few pictures along his career. The first picture I'd like to show you is a picture I took just when he finished defending his thesis, and I took him to the Paramarket River in Michigan to go fly fishing for king salmon. So can we see that picture, please? It's a great picture. That, by the way, is a Chinook salmon. The second picture I want to show you was taken just this last Thanksgiving on the same river in a little colder weather. So let's take a look at that picture, please. So the fisherman is a little stouter. The fish is a little shorter. I hope now when I record Andrew in 7 years that on the PM at Thanksgiving, he'll still have that gleam and fire in his eyes. So Andrew, best of luck, and many thanks to everyone for coming today. Again, my sincere apologies for not being able to be there in person.